All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie. I am the training program coordinator with Colorado LTAP. For those that are tuning in on demand, if you're not familiar with LTAP, we are a federally funded grant program that provides trainings to local agencies and municipalities across the state. This is part of our Wednesday workshop series. We present these during our off seasons just to provide information on the latest and greatest in the transportation industry. Just one quick housekeeping item before we get started. Quick disclosure, Colorado LTAP does not endorse products, manufacturers, or outside entities. These presentations are for informational purposes only and is not intended to reflect approval or endorsement of any one product or entity by Colorado LTAP. So with all that stuff out of the way, I will hand it over to our presenter for the day, Nathan Peters with Wheeler.
Thank you so much. So my name is Nathan. I'm with Wheeler Lumber LLC. We are a prefabricator of bridges. So I'm going to go into a little bit about some of the different options that Wheeler does and offers. Town, city engineers, DOT level type of projects, anywhere from vehicular to recreational. Those will kind of be some of the different topics that we dive into today and highlight some of the things that Wheeler can do and some of the things that we offer some of our clients that we work with across the country. I live here in Colorado. I'm actually based in Arvada. So I'm here and local and can help out with projects in that regard. But I do cover our Western territory. So I cover all the way out into California and beyond into Alaska and Hawaii. So still waiting for that first big project in Hawaii that'll get me out there. Until then, I'll be here in the continental 48. But without further ado, so this is kind of just a quick background on Wheeler as a company. So we've got our engineered product sales headquarters is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, technically Eden Prairie, but more people are familiar with the Twin Cities. We do all of our steel fabrication and landscape supply sales are out of Shakopee, Minnesota, which is just down the road from the Twin Cities there in Minnesota. All of our roof and floor truss fabrication is done at a plant in Waverly, Kansas. All of our timber fabrication and our treatment facility all in Whitewood, South Dakota, so the Black Hills, South Dakota. And then there's myself there popped up on that map, the sales engineer covering the Western Territory based here in Denver Metro or Arvada, Colorado. So the engineered products division of Wheeler, what we do and some of the main flagship products that we deal with. Of course, the two that people are most familiar with, the steel recreational bridges and the timber vehicular bridges. Those are probably our two biggest heavy hitters as far as what we're offering the market and what we're helping folks in engineering and fabricating and shipping out to job sites. Some of the other things that Wheeler does get involved with, the timber recreational bridges, of course, and something that's a little bit more popular here in the West. And then last but not least, something that's far more popular back in the Midwest in some of those more traditional, locations that Wheeler services, and some of those state DOTs like Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas. They all do a lot of the salt storage buildings that, again, with all the timber, treated timber that we prefabricate, engineer the buildings, and ship out. So the first thing that we're going to talk about will be those Panalam bridge kits. So when you're talking about the Panalam bridge kits here, first we're really going to hit and focus on the vehicular bridges. So we've got a Panalam bridge kit that services the vehicular market, and we're going to be talking a little bit about those projects and what Wheeler can offer for you guys. So just kind of a quick overview. Of course, those vehicular timber bridges, so the Panalam, that's going to be, the base material that we're talking about are those county road bridges. Everything is timber construction, of course, except the hardware. But you're talking about components and pieces, again, much more aesthetic to the natural environment than maybe a steel or concrete option. And something that can do, that with those more natural materials of timber. Ideal for new construction. So we're doing a lot of new builds and a lot of new roads. They're out there putting these type of bridges in, but we're also doing some repair and renovation work with these types of structures and designs. And we actually service markets where we have both owner installed and contractor built options, and clients that we deal with and work with on a regular basis. So, no matter what level in the chain you're at, so to speak, whether you're a contractor who is bidding county bridge work or bridge work that's going in for vehicular bridges, or if you are, say, a county engineer who's in the engineering department of, maybe the town of Castle Rock, or, out in Gilpin County, you're in their roads department, someone like that. We're even having crews that'll self-perform that work in-house there, at that level. So kind of a quick history of the Panalam technology, and type of a quick rundown of what the timber slab span history is you've got those, back in 1930 is when Wheeler, so my email address is npeters@wheeler1892.com. I say that as a sidetrack because 1892 is the year that Wheeler was founded. So back in the 1930s, a lot of these timber slab span projects that Wheeler was supplying and working on, they'd be shipped out as loose laminate boards, a lot of field nailing involved, a lot of fabrication in the field, but essentially the technology, more or less, or the quote unquote engineering that went into this type of a design, more or less the same. Fast forward to the 1970s is where we were getting some more sophisticated machinery, getting processes figured out, a lot more standard details were working its way through the county road industry, even DOT levels. So with a lot of those repeated details, a lot of those efficiencies, we start shop fabricating a lot of these parts. We're doing a lot more larger spike laminating and increasing capacities, taking designs even further, and doing a lot of that through some of that improved machinery like the mechanical press, and some of that other stuff that we had done in the factory, to actually take our process into our system to the next level. So here's a couple examples of what those types of finished products look like. Obviously they're in Routt County, Colorado, as well as one in Teton County, Wyoming. So kind of the base process that we use, and probably one of the more recent changes, or I should say updates really, is that the treatment that we're doing all of our timber, as it's come from, as the sophistication of the lumber treatment industry has evolved over the years, from things like creosote, all the way up to what we now have as an industry standard of the, let's see, I don't know why that busted out of there, but there you are. So the, you've essentially got the QNAP, which is the copper naphthenate treatment, that we produce. All of Wheeler's lumber is produced with that treatment. There are other options for waterborne things of that nature, but this is the baseline of what we're producing our Panalam, and what those bridge kits are being actually, being treated to before they're being prefabricated. So we're using standard details, standard equipment, no specialty labor to install them. And these QNAP bridges and these QNAP designs offer, in many cases, that 70+ year design life that we like to see, and that we're hoping, that when we're dealing with clients and discussing the stuff, so these are long-term solutions. With the timber, you get the aesthetics as well as the durability when you're using that QNAP treatment. So here, kind of just to hammer home that proven system, that quality. This is from a Minnesota Road Research Board group. They did some research on timber-based bridges. This is from a 2020 report, and you can see highlighted there, it's talking about those types of bridges that they have in service there in their state. Again, a huge timber bridge program that these guys in Minnesota are doing, and they're at the county road level. And like I said, they're getting constant 70-year performance out of these bridges at a minimum. I don't know why this keeps on wanting to do that, but there we go. So the pre-manufactured kits, here's kind of another look at those pre-manufactured kits. Again, shop fabricated, shipped as components, complete material package, and no form work. You're just dropping these prefabricated timber pieces in place and installing them with all mechanical fasteners. Kind of that cross section of what that looks like. coming out of that bridge deck. You've got your, you got your spreader beams there on the bottom, that dowel laminated deck panel there in the middle. That's your middle cross section. It's kind of your most important area. That's the meat and potatoes of that bridge. You've got those crash tested rail systems, or even just a curb and scupper that you can design with depending on your client needs. Your wear surface shown there as well. You can kind of see that highlighted there in the bottom left-hand corner, that shiplap connection. That's how those panels are actually installed. And we'll see a couple of photos kind of highlight that shiplap connection and what that installation looks like here shortly. This would be our deck design guide. So you're kind of looking at what those vehicular loads are relative to deck and timber sizes for those different designs. Like I said, this is kind of a general guideline. Obviously the design package that we're putting together for our bridges are all based on AASHTO LRFD specifications. Many cases, the HL93 is going to be your basis of design, or HS20 in some cases is another popular one for county road or county crews to use. But again, you're kind of seeing those general sizes and thicknesses based on your spans. And you can see, as we're producing these types of bridges and these timber slabs in up to 40-foot spans, even at that HL93, full interstate rated design for that bridge. So you can kind of see that single span photo of that bridge there with that timber abutment as well, and timber backing and wing walls. You're sitting here at about a 20-foot span there. You're figuring you've got about a 5-foot spacing in all those bays through the rail. So again, an ideal type of bridge. It's going to be more blending into the aesthetics of the surrounding areas in a rural setting, more of that natural timber, natural materials. You're going to enhance that, and you can see on this one in particular as well, they've got that wear course, that asphalt wear surface actually goes across there. So you've got that continuous roadway over the timber as well. And we can produce these same type of structures, these same type of designs in that multi-span option. And you can see there where they've actually got those driven piles that we've got our timber sleepers on over where the deck is actually sitting. But again, they're using their steel intermediate piles in conjunction with our timber decks and our timber abutments as well, our timber back walls, I should say. Here's just kind of, again, another look at that cross-section view, this time adding in that timber abutment kit. As you can see, you've got those different piles, the spacings there, all based off of design, loading, height, length, all those different factors will go into the final design and what that will actually look like at the end of the day. But generally, that's kind of what you're looking at, and what that design package is going to be when it's delivered. Couple different looks at those foundations then, because there's no, it's not like you have to use one thing or the other when you're dealing with the timber. You can do timber abutments and piling if that's what your aesthetics and even cost wise, if you can get the pile drivers out there. With access wise, cost wise, that's usually a pretty effective way to do it. You can even see some of the timber cribbing in the top corner, stone, masonry, foundations, even concrete, poured abutments, those types of things. We can be used in conjunction with all those different types of foundations, or even something like a GRS, which is, again, probably your most cost-effective way to do something like that in the field. Maybe we won't supply the design package for those abutments, if you're doing something other than the timber, but we can work with you on getting you guys heading in the right direction and getting something that'll work for the bridge that we're going to be supplying. So just a quick video, or not really a video, but just a kind of a quick little cap here. As you can see, this is kind of that showcase of how that bridge will get installed, that Panelam bridge. As you can see, those panels typically swung into place with those shiplap joints as they're brought into place. You're going to be adding some mechanical fasteners there. You can see they're tapping before they add any of those lag screws, bolts. Again, depending on your design loads, is going to be what that final hardware looks like. But again, we're supplying all those types of features within our design. Again, putting that multi-span together. Most of the time, those panels you're talking about in a couple thousand pounds, a couple ton panels. So they can be swung into place. if all the foundations and everything's ready to go, this type of technology, you should expect to get this installed within a day. As far as getting some of these prefabricated panels in place, set, hammered down, and set and ready to go. We'll prefabricate those rails. In this case, that's just that standard curb and scupper that you see first installed, coming back with some of the posts, the rail posts, getting those in place, and then again, installing, as much as what we can prefabricate, we're going to do as much as we can on the front end before it ever ships to you guys. Sometimes with the rail, we've got to, do a little bit less depending on how it's going to be shipped down the road. We want to make sure that what shows up doesn't get damaged, of course. So, we'll work with you guys on that, on again, maximizing as much as we can ship in a kit, prefabricated, pre-engineered, ready to go and installed as soon as it shows up, versus what maybe needs to be shipped loose and might require a little bit more installation in the field, but still something that's going to be good and something that's going to be, able to be installed in most cases a day. So here, kind of going into some of those railing options, here's what that, that typical curve only is going to be. You've got a multi-span bridge here across kind of a low-lying floodplain. This is there in Teton County, Wyoming as well. So you can see where they've got kind of gravel road up to the bridge. It's goes down to just that timber surface, and then repeats back to gravel afterwards. Here's some looks at some of that crash tested railing. So we actually did do, in conjunction with, I believe, the University of Nebraska, the USDA Forest Service. There's a test facility there in Lincoln where they do a lot of the crash testing for the railing, where we've helped supply some design ideas. We've worked with them on getting some different timber styles crash tested. Essentially we don't do any of the testing, and we don't necessarily dictate what designs are tested, but again, they've consulted with us and other manufacturers and suppliers. So we do have some good designs that we can supply that have been, gone through the crash tested railing procedure. We can also do other, quote unquote equivalents. If you want a style that's maybe similar to something that has been crash tested, but hasn't actually been through the process of, seeing impacts or actual crash testing. But again, if crash testing is what you need, there's standard details for that available, and we can supply those types of things for you. So there's a look at that TL1 railing with curb, as it came prefabricated and installed there on that bridge. Here's another look at that shop assembled railing. So, so those railings pre-assembled on top of those actual prefabricated panels, and you can see that shiplap joint that's about ready to come down there, as that last panel is being swung into place. And there, even that with that photo, you can kind of see, another one of those abutment options where they actually use that gabion basket style, in conjunction with the bridge that we were supplying. We didn't supply the design, engineering, or materials for those gabion baskets, but something that we were able to work with them, site limitations as they were, they felt that their most effective and most cost effective and ease of installation was going to be getting something out there that could be erected in place, and something that wasn't going to require, concrete trucks, that type of stuff. So the gabion was the direction that they went. So this is actually at the Coffee Pot Springs campground there in White River National Forest here in Colorado. So there you can see again, good photo with an asphalt overlay over that timber deck. Here's just that timber wear surface sitting on top of that timber deck. So, that deck surface of the Panalam, it is structural as well as, the actual riding surface of the deck. But, adding that additional timber wear surface, like anything, kind of a belt and suspenders, you're going to prolong the lifespan of the bridge itself, by kind of creating that intermediate wear surface that, you're going to be adding a percentage of cost on the front end to get many more years out of the back end of the service life. So here's a quick little case history I'll run through real fast. This was actually with the Wood County, Wisconsin engineers. This is on Young Road there in Wood County. They had a triple culvert crossing, that they were looking to replace. So they had gone in. So this is kind of what our engineered drawings would look like. Our design package that came to them with shop drawings for fabrication, packaged together. They get out there, the hired contractor that was brought out to perform all the site work, do all the demo. Creek is cleared. They come out, they did all their steel pile driving. So again, we didn't supply any of the steel members here. That was all contractor supplied, but something that we were willing to work with them on to make sure that, they knew all of the different dimensions, all the different loads, all those types of things from our superstructure design to be coordinated with their substructure design package. So all the H piles were cut off. Then we'll come in and actually place a timber cap on top of all those steel piles. So that timber cap is something that we supply as well. So that's Wheeler supplied timber there. Same treatment as all the different QNAP. Here they are preparing that back wall, getting the back wall of the abutment in place. So now everything is getting set, filter fabric on top, rip wrap, getting close to the end. Now the actual panels have arrived on site. So here they are getting those actual deck panels installed. Dropping those in place in series, connection with the shiplap joint as mentioned. And again, there's some heavy equipment that needs to be out there for lifting. Obviously, some heavy hardware that's going to be required for the installation, whether it be lag screws, bolts. So maybe a little bit of drill and tapping that needs to be done in conjunction with that. But like I said, nothing that would require specialty crews, specialty training, beyond just your typical crews or typical laborers that might be available at the contractor or county level. Here they are installing that crash tested railing design. And then, like I said, as they're buttoning that up, here they are finally with that asphalt overlay coming over the top and paving and smoothing that out. So there's that finished look. Big contrast to what that old culvert looked like, even increasing so much more of that clear space below the bridge for flows to come through. Big improvement for that area. And it was going to be something that was going to enhance aesthetically, moving forward, not taken away. Here's a Juneau County, Wisconsin project as well. Another case history. Won't dive into this one as deep as that last one, but just to kind of give you a quick little look. Again, here's that single span panel lamb. Again, just a quick update, a quick facelift here for them. This one had a skew, so a little bit different, a little bit more challenging from the engineering and installation standpoint, but still something that we can do. So even up to that 30 degree skew, not a problem. We can design and install something for this type of a county road as well. And then you can see that finished product. Again, much improvement to what was there, what that existing condition bridge was. Here's a quick photo of that GRS abutment, some of that masonry there, finishing it off. Again, I would say, from a county bridge standpoint, if pile driving is not an option, which for a lot of crews it just simply isn't, whether that be access or just site restraints. You can do these types of GRS abutments, and they seem to be a very cost-effective option that our clients tend to gravitate towards when they are doing a lot of the self-performed work. Here you are, you can see them kind of doing, finishing out that FHWA design guide, GRS abutment type of design and installation. So again, they're piling that up. It's all, it's a series of matting, geosill, fabric, backfill, again, per design. So there is a guide, there's a design guide that they're following. They're finishing that off with the bridge seat being a concrete sill with a timber sleeper. So you can see that sill, once cured, they got that timber sleeper on top. And here they are doing the actual deck panel installation, swinging those prefabricated panels in place. Here you can see that installation there. So the panels themselves are spiked into that sleeper. So that sleeper really simplifies the installation as well. Just because you're getting that smaller, whether it be a 12 by 12 by length or a 14 by 14 by length, you're getting that sleeper in place, easier to handle. You're getting that, your tolerance for accuracy improves there when you're dealing with that. that type of a smaller material. And then, you're coming in and you're getting that next timber to timber connection with the larger panels, where your tolerance is maybe going to be a little bit harder to dial in with such a large and heavy piece. But once set in place, once installed, those panels are handled once, and then like I said, you move on to the next one, get that shiplap joint in place, and continue to level out those panels until you get the width of that span completed. Rail posts and curbs attached prior to setting. So again, prefabricated as much as we could. They'll come back in and get that actual the curb face up here on the top side of that rail installed once everything else is set. So there's final grading getting wrapped up. And then here's a look at another project. This is there at the Horseshoe Campground in the Arapahoe National Forest, or Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest here in Colorado. You can see that on the map there where the location is here. Again, a 3-span bridge with some intermediate piers made out of concrete. So here's, even the railing that they've got there is more of that crash tested steel rail versus the timber rail. But we're supplying all the posts, all the hardware to connect those posts, and the deck itself. Again, so we can supply as much of the deck to the substructure as the budget or the client wants. We can coordinate and supply as little as just a simple rail or rail deck combination that goes on top of your foundation. Here's a bridge there in Georgetown. I always enjoy this photo. With the little bridge all dolled up and jazzed up for Christmas there in Georgetown. This is a Panalam as well. Here's a good look at a bridge on a concrete abutment foundation there in Dane County, Wisconsin. Here they are installing those Panalams. Again, good view of what that installation process looks like. Getting this spreader beam anchored down to the concrete in place first, getting that tolerance dialed in, and then coming back with these larger panels and swinging those in place and setting them, making that timber to timber connection. Here they were able to set all 5 of those panels in one day, equaling what I would guess was probably about a 24 to 25 foot wide bridge. Here's a vehicular stringer bridge. So another type of style of bridge that Wheeler can supply. So we can get into some of the timber stringers or the steel stringers. Either of those options are available. Some that we can supply. Obviously for the larger spans, the steel becomes a better option if you're talking about depth of section, those types of things. But even for the smaller spans, sometimes those actual timber stringers are a viable option as well. So you can see here's a glulam stringer project where they had that timber, and again, you're talking about getting into the glulam stringers. If timber is an aesthetic you're still looking to have, and maybe your span is over that 40-foot threshold that the Panalam bridge kit can handle. So you're starting to get into maybe something that's maybe a little bit more pricey with the glulam stringers. But you're handling a capacity that's going to be a little bit greater than just that 40 feet that the Panalam can handle. Here's a look at that steel stringer. So here on the steel stringer design, they've gone ahead and they've utilized that timber piling and back wall. So you got that foundation in timber. You've got that weathering steel stringer across the bottom. You've got a timber deck with a timber rail as well on top. So you can see them here setting that. So that's what it would look like when everything's getting framed up. You've got your back wall and foundation set there in timber, all their stringers and diaphragms set in place with the weathering steel, and then they'll actually come through. And this is the view from the bottom side. Essentially, they're taking what is the same type of design of material of what the Panalams were, and we're taking that and we're actually using those spike laminated panels, and we're creating a transverse deck on top of those stringers that can handle the same HL93, HS20 loading, whatever's required for the project. So we're utilizing that transverse panel deck with the steel stringers to kind of get a little bit of that timber aesthetic, but maximizing maybe some of the material capabilities of what the weathering steel can do on some of the larger spans beyond what the actual glulam or even what the panolam spans can achieve up to 40 feet. Here you go with a concrete bridge. This is all precast concrete bridge. And what we would do is we would come in and supply all of this crash tested railing that then goes on that prefabricated timber bridge, or sorry, concrete bridge. So that's kind of a full scope of what we do on the vehicular side of things, which was going to be, a majority of the discussion today, because I think that it best suits the LTAP audience that we're trying to capture with these types of Wednesday workshop talks. But definitely another facet of what Wheeler does and what we're capable of, and a big book of the business that we do here in Colorado and the West as well, is the recreational bridge fabrication. That's something that you guys, or some of the folks watching, might be even more familiar with, depending on where your engineering capacity is placed. But as far as these recreation bridges, we are a fabricator, or a Colorado DOT has a list of pre-approved fabricators for these types of weathered steel trusses, which Wheeler is a part of that group. Supplying bridges here in the state for many years, and we look forward to these fun projects, opening up and unlocking these beautiful spaces, kind of as this photo highlights. I always think these projects are, not that county roads aren't exciting, but these projects are usually a little bit more fun in my perspective. But so I can kind of dive into a little bit of what we do on the recreation side of things. So first we'll kind of talk about the recreational timber. So a lot of the timber that we were talking about on the vehicular side of things and the vehicular side of the business that Wheeler has, a lot of that stuff still applies. A lot of our designs are utilizing the prefabricated elements that we can do with the panolam. We're using, like I said, spanning with transverse decks, those types of things, building bridges, boardwalks, docks. We're treating everything with the copper naphthenate still. So we're still doing, top end type of treatment quality, still doing a lot of pre-engineered, prefabricated design packages, and a lot of the clients that we are looking at, and a lot of the clients that we're actually going after with these types of projects and designs would be, like I said, the USDA Forest Service, the DNR, and anywhere from, parks and wildlife type of agencies, whether that be at a state or even federal level. So here's a look at a timber stringer bridge, a recreational timber stringer bridge. So you can see this was done with a glulam stringer, so a little bit longer span again than what our panelams are able to handle. So that's kind of what justifies maybe some of the added cost of what a glulam would require, but still something that gives you a real nice aesthetic, and helps you achieve some of those longer spans and maybe some of those tougher areas where you've got floodplains, wider creeks, and that 40-foot just isn't going to cut it. So here's another look. This is actually in Littleton, Colorado. This is at the Hudson Gardens, a nice little garden area. So this is a glulam stringer that we had supplied to them that was installed over the pond there. Here's a panolam, a timber panolam retrofit that we had done. This is over the Mickelson Trail in the Black Hills, South Dakota. So you can see they actually did some different concrete foundations for the spread footings, but then using all the timber aesthetics for the extensions, those piles, columns, as you will, above the actual foundations or spread footings. Here's a timber Pratt truss. So something that's going to obviously be a bit more of a premium cost. I mean, you can just looking at that photo, you see more material there, more design. There's more there, but those again do reach longer span capacities than what the panelams have. And again, if you're looking for a signature bridge, something that's going to stand out aesthetically, something that's going to enhance aesthetically the surrounding area. something that people are going to want to congregate on, gather, take photos at an event on, then maybe something like this Pratt truss is going to work better for you and your needs. Again, just something a little bit more aesthetic, but a little bit more, obviously not as cost effective as some of the other leaner designs we've been looking at. And then, you start getting into some more of your signature bridges. Here you've got this timber arch truss. So, you're coupling a deck with that timber arch. Again, you're getting a much more aesthetically pleasing bridge. You're increasing capacity of what those spans can actually hit with the timber design. And for most people, a bridge of this span, you would see it and you're thinking a weathering steel truss, not necessarily something that can still be done in timber. But with the capabilities and designs that we have, some of the details that we can produce, we can span longer, still enhance aesthetically, but again, at times, whether or not a project is going to have something like this type of a signature bridge in their budget, just totally depends on what that project needs are, what those project needs are. Here's a look at a little timber covered bridge. So again, we can do so many different things, so many different bridges, so many different bridge styles. Like I said, we supply all the different pre-engineered packages with those bridges. So that's something that we're always keeping in mind and something we're being mindful of. So a railroad retrofit where they've actually come through and over that old railroad trestle. They've put those transverse panels across the deck, creating, essentially a new riding surface or a new trail surface over that existing bridge. Here's a look at the platform. There's a photo of that we had shown right at the beginning of this recreational discussion. This just kind of gives you a look of what some of those aesthetics can look like. Some boardwalks. This is in Itasca State Park in Minnesota. This is actually where the Mississippi River begins. Here's a nice photo. This was a fishing dock that we had supplied over the Georgetown Reservoir in Georgetown, Colorado. So this has got some snow on it. That's a lot of the white that you see there on that photo. But essentially what we had done for this project is, again, we've got the Panalam prefabricated panels that make up the base of the actual dock itself. And then all the railing here is going to be made from a waterborne treated timber. Those intimate contact areas as they're described, where people might be on that railing. Again, doing that with the waterborne, if that's what the client, that was kind of the direction that Georgetown wanted to go with this fishing dock. But, kind of showing that complementary application of the waterborne and the QNAP treated timber together. Recreational steel bridges is going to be what we'll jump into next. So, I would say that, it's not the first topic we talked about today, but it's definitely one of the biggest parts of Wheeler's, business that we do and what we've worked on in the past, in the direction that we certainly anticipate continuing to go in the future. So, a little bit more common of a topic to discuss. So that's why I don't try and spend too much time on it, because like I said, these are typically designs and products and bridges that people are pretty familiar with. But just in case you're not, then we'll just kind of go through that real fast. But the clients that we're typically going after with these types of recreational steel bridges are the type of clients that are coming to us looking for help. Again, DOTs, the USDA Forest Service again, and then a lot of Parks and Recs type of departments. A lot of those types of trailway building, whether it be in city, county park. These are the workhorse style bridges that a lot of those types of engineers are using and designing with. Sorry, I had to get a little drink there. So we are doing all the engineering for the superstructure. So, if you're buying a bridge from Wheeler, that bridge is being supplied with an engineering package. We're doing as much prefabrication as we can. So you can kind of see from this aerial photo is you've got a couple multi-spans that were delivered for this one bridge. It's all going to be bolted together. So we're prefabricating as much as we can fit onto a truck and get onto the job site. And we're doing everything per AASHTO and AISC designs. So this is a look at a Pratt style. This is our most basic, our most straightforward design style. This is a bridge over in Idaho Springs. Some of you guys might be familiar with, over by the Argo Gold Mine and Mill, the Stork Mill there. But that just, like I said, this is going to be one of the most common steel truss recreation bridges you see here in Colorado being utilized on a regular basis. There's another look at that Pratt truss. This is on a project there in Jackson, Wyoming. This is on the Reservoir Bridge over Georgetown, or up in Georgetown, Colorado, right over the spillway there on the lake there. Here's a Warren truss, so a little bit different design, similar to the Pratt, but you've got the actual portal on top, and obviously those diagonals are alternating at 45s versus the Pratt, which have, like I said, the style more uniform across towards, all pointing towards that middle span. That Warren truss, again, a little, more material there, but you're going to be able to get longer spans, sometimes utilizing that type of a design when you're trying to maximize some of the strength to weight ratios of getting that additional portal on top of the actual box truss. Here's a bowstring. A nice aesthetic to that bowstring, gives a little bit more natural curvature to the actual truss itself. We definitely supply a lot of these type of bowstring styles in addition to the Pratt. Again, a pretty common style, but typically cost-wise, gonna be a little bit more there in a bowstring than what you would see with a Pratt truss. But again, not necessarily, cost prohibitive by any means. But it comes down to what type of aesthetic you're really trying to capture for that project. So here's a bowstring there in Durango, Colorado, with a couple of outlooks that you can see have been added to that middle, to a couple of those middle bays. So as people are coming across, they can kind of enjoy a little bit more of the scenery, stepping out on those outlooks. And we can add outlooks, platforms, those types of things to any of the trusses that we produce. But I would say on those bowstrings, that's typically the most common, because you kind of get your dimension at those middle bays is a little bit higher than on the Pratt, so you get a little bit more access for pedestrian, walk through, that type of stuff. But those outlooks, definitely something that looks nice on those bowstrings, and we see pretty common trying to utilize to kind of enhance the aesthetics and reach a little bit closer to the views that you're trying to see from the bridge deck itself. So here's a modified bow. So you can see, the biggest difference between a modified bow and a traditional bowstring is you've got these longer end posts. So you still get that curvature of the top cord compared to that bottom cord, creating that bow shape. But whereas a traditional bowstring is going to come down and make a much more tight, acute angle there between that top and bottom cord at the end post, here on those modified bows, you've got that extended end post. And like I said, you're just not creating such an acute angle there at the end. A little bit easier to weld. And I think that the main reason why you'd want to utilize something this is, obviously in this case, in this exact example at the Gateway Trail, is that you're able to extend a multi-span and have it be a little bit more uniform in that truss shape. Than if you were to use, say, that traditional bowstring that comes down to that tighter angle there at the end, and maybe creates a little bit more of an angle, and like I said, your lines and your shapes aren't quite as tight as maybe you can achieve it with that modified bow, like you're seeing here in Stillwater, Minnesota. There's another there's just your single span modified bow. Here again, totally an aesthetic thing. A Pratt truss could go in this location just as easily as this modified bow does. But this was the style that they wanted for this area in Albuquerque. Here's a steel truss with timber deck. So with all the steel trusses, you can do a variety of different deck styles to go with them and complement them. So here's a timber deck with the steel truss. Here's a concrete deck with that steel truss. This is the bridge over Big Dry Creek in Thornton, Colorado. You can actually see this one from I-25. If you'll notice the exit 225 sign up here. So next time you're cruising along I-25, like I said, this is something you can see right there from the interstate. Very new bridge. I think it was actually just built last year. Here's a steel truss concrete deck. So here's a look at just that deck pan as it's been delivered. We will engineer and prefabricate our spans to have these deck pans pre-installed. So all the contractors having to do is set rebar and pour concrete once the bridge is actually set in place. So you can see that crew performing that work there on the Clear Creek Greenway Trail in Idaho Springs, coming through and pouring that concrete. Some culvert retrofits. You can kind of see, again, not a huge book of business that Wheeler does here in the West with these culverts, but something that we've done a heck of a lot of back in the Midwest. And something that if you guys were interested in trying something like this out, we could definitely help with the engineering, the design, all that type of stuff, all the way through the prefabrication. So, again, somebody utilizing something like this, probably going for those aesthetic reasons. If it comes down to cost, there's probably, more cost-effective ways to do it. But the actual timber, usually not necessarily cost prohibitive, but usually not the cheapest option, but something that will, again, look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and sit better with the natural environment, especially in rural settings. So here's a concrete culvert extension. So this was actually an existing concrete culvert. They wanted to widen the road over that. So instead of having to form up and pour additional concrete, adjacent to that precast section, they actually installed some timber extensions, some timber wing walls, regraded on top, and then they got their extension there. So that's kind of the view from the top. Really wouldn't even notice it. Last but not least, and I'll go through this very quickly. This is for the salt storage buildings. So again, we're doing a lot of the pre-engineering, a lot of prefabrication for these buildings. They're being shipped out, and this is just to be used in lieu of any of your traditional concrete or steel type of salt storage buildings. Just highly corrosive environment. The QNAP timber that we're using and that we've been chatting about and talking about during this whole presentation, anything that we're producing timber wise coming in that copper naphthenate treated timber, something that's going to perform much better in those highly corrosive environments full of salt, water, even some of the chemicals that go with it. So we've had great success building these salt storage facilities. Especially back in the East Coast, where a lot of this, where they're putting a lot of these types of salts, chemicals on the roadways, and constant battle of corrosion that those guys were fighting with their traditional builds of concrete and steel. So you can be something as bare bones as a shed roof. And again, we're doing everything pre-engineered and sending you guys a package of, hey, here's a building that you guys can erect or hire a contractor to erect if you want. But we're, like I said, we're supplying an engineering package and all these materials prefabricated when they arrive on site. And like I said, slowing the corrosion of the building themselves by supplying it in that copper naphthenate timber. So here's kind of just a look at that shed roof with multiple bays. We can do very, very large buildings, as you can see here with the gable roof. And then, I think this was our largest facility that we've supplied, which is a 10,000 plus ton facility in Minnesota. And there's just a couple other photos of what some of those final looks of what those salt storage facilities and what we've supplied in the past look like. But again, your biggest factor here is you're getting that superior performance against corrosive materials like the salt by building and utilizing the copper naphthenate timber. So that is the Wheeler discussion in a nutshell. If you have any questions or any future projects that you're looking for some help on, you could always reach out. My phone number 720-926-1028. I'm based in Arvada, Colorado. So, local here to the Denver metro area and pretty local to many more places within the state. Bit of a drive to head out to the Western Slope, but we're always happy to help. And, just reach out if you got any questions or are looking at a bridge project you think Wheeler might be able to help with.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you so much for presenting. Big thank you to Nathan for today, and big thank you to Wheeler for being willing to present. With that, I think we can go ahead and end. As always, I will post all of this onto our YouTube channel, and we'll make sure to have Nathan's contact information linked there, so you can reach out and give him a holler if you have any questions. Thank you so much.